On a crisp December morning in 1964, the world turned its eyes away from the nuclear brinkmanship of the Cold War and toward a young man from Atlanta, Georgia. Imagine the sheer weight of that moment. At just 35 years old, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was about to become the youngest person ever to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. He wasn't a head of state, a general, or a wealthy diplomat. He was a man who had been stabbed, bombed, and jailed more than 20 times. Most people expect a Nobel laureate to stand in a place of comfort, but Dr. King stood in a place of struggle. In this video, we aren't just looking at a medal, we are dissecting the high-stakes strategy of a man who used non-violence to bring a superpower to its knees. If you think you know the story of Martin Luther King Jr., wait until you see the true cost of the prize he accepted in Oslo. The year 1964 was a paradox in American history. On one hand, the Civil Rights Act had finally been signed into law, but on the other, the streets of the South were stained with the blood of activists. Dr. King was exhausted. He had just finished a grueling campaign in St. Augustine, where he faced violent mobs and constant death threats. When the call came from Norway, it felt like a bolt of lightning. The Nobel Committee wasn't just honoring a man, they were intervening in American politics. By awarding King, they were telling the United States and the world that the struggle for racial equality was the most significant peace movement on the planet. It transformed a local civil rights leader into a global moral authority. To understand why King won, you have to understand his weapon. Drawing deep inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi's Satyagraha, King refined a method he called the sword that heals. In his Nobel lecture, he analyzed the three great problems facing humanity: racial injustice, poverty, and war. He argued that these were not separate issues but a triple threat to the human race. King's brilliance lay in his ability to convince millions that non-violence was not for the weak, but for the most courageous. He proved that soul force could disarm a police officer's baton and melt the heart of an oppressor. This wasn't just a religious ideal. It was a sophisticated psychological and political strategy that the Nobel Committee recognized as the future of human conflict resolution. Perhaps the most powerful part of the 1964 Nobel story is what happened after the flashbulbs stopped. The Nobel Prize came with an award of $54,608, a fortune in the 1960s. For a man who lived on a modest preacher's salary and whose family was constantly under threat, this money could have secured his children's future forever. Instead, King did something that silenced his critics. He didn't keep a single cent. He donated every dollar to the SCLC, the NAACP, and other organizations leading the movement. He told the world that he was merely a trustee for the millions of noble people whose names would never be in history books. This act of total financial sacrifice remains one of the greatest examples of leadership in history. While the Nobel Prize gave King a global shield, it also placed a target on his back. The FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, became obsessed with destroying the Nobel winner. They couldn't understand how a man they considered a radical could be honored by the world. However, King used his new platform to expand his vision. He began to speak out against the Vietnam War and launched the Poor People's Campaign. He realized that peace was not just the absence of tension, but the presence of justice. The Nobel Prize was his mandate to speak for the oppressed everywhere, from the slums of Chicago to the villages of Southeast Asia. He became a global prophet, reminding us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. As we look back at that podium in Oslo, we see a man who bridged the gap between what America was and what it could become. Dr. King's Nobel Peace Prize serves as a timeless reminder that moral courage is more durable than military might. He left us with a blueprint for solving modern conflicts without destroying ourselves in the process. He taught us that the dream of peace is only achievable through the labor of justice. Today, every time someone stands up peacefully against an unfair law, the spirit of Dr. King's Nobel Prize lives on. It is a legacy that belongs to all of us, a reminder that one person, armed only with the truth, can indeed move the world. While the world celebrated Dr. King as a hero of peace, back in the United States, the Nobel Prize triggered a dark and aggressive campaign to destroy him. J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, was so incensed by King's international recognition that he intensified a secret war against the civil rights leader. The Bureau sent King a chilling, anonymous suicide letter, attempting to use the pressure of his new global status to break his spirit. This is the part of the story most people forget. The Nobel Peace Prize didn't make King's life easier. It made him the most hunted man in America. Yet, in the face of such psychological warfare, King's resolve only hardened. He wore the Nobel medal not as a shield of protection, but as a heavy responsibility to be even more radical in his pursuit of truth, regardless of the personal cost. Ultimately, the Nobel Peace Prize of 1964 was the moment Martin Luther King Jr. was handed the torch of global leadership. He used his acceptance speech to lay out a world house philosophy, arguing that because we all live in a technologically connected world, we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. His words in Oslo predicted the challenges of the 21st century, from global poverty to international conflict. He challenged humanity to undergo a revolution of values, shifting from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. Today, his Nobel legacy serves as the ultimate proof that the most powerful force on Earth is not the atom bomb, but the awakened conscience of a people committed to justice. Dr. King didn't just win a prize for the past, he left a survival manual for our future. The true brilliance of Dr. King's Nobel legacy is that it didn't end with a ceremony in 1964 or a tragedy in 1968. It became an eternal flame that continues to light the path for every modern movement for dignity. From the activists standing up for climate justice to those fighting for human rights in the digital age, the Oslo Blueprint remains the gold standard for social change. Dr. King proved that a single voice, fueled by the unarmed truth and unconditional love he spoke of at the podium, can penetrate the thickest walls of oppression. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, his message reminds us that we are all tied in a single garment of destiny. The Nobel Prize was merely the world's way of acknowledging what we now know for certain, that the dream is not a sleep state, but an active, waking commitment to leave the world better than we found it. The question is no longer whether the dream is possible, but whether we have the courage to keep it alive. If you're inspired by Dr. King's legacy, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel, where I'm dedicated to bringing you the true stories behind the powerful life and journey of Martin Luther King Jr. Don't forget to hit the bell icon and share this video to help keep the dream alive. Thanks for watching.